The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining our CNP webinar. My name is Colleen Fillmore, and I am the Idaho State Department of Education Child Nutrition Director. Along with me today is the entire CNP state agency staff, and please begin submitting your questions, and we will address all of those at the end of this webinar. Just as a reminder, please put on your calendar the next two webinars that we have scheduled will be September 3rd and September 17th at this same time. So just as a few reminders, the state agency has been receiving many questions regarding the child nutrition program participation for virtual schools and students in the past few days, if not weeks, and we wanted to provide some clarification. So today the NSLP team will be providing clarification as your school district moves forward in planning the reopening of schools and see if your virtual students qualify to receive reimbursement for USDA regulations. In addition, Heather is going to be talking about the town halls that we have been presenting. Heather and the rest of the team, they have done an excellent job with those town halls. So if you have not participated in those, would really recommend you do that. The format that they have put together has breakout rooms, and they come back and talk in an entire group. And we feel they've been very helpful and have heard a lot of positive things from those town halls. So wanted to let everyone know on this webinar that yesterday the Idaho State Department of Education did a statewide training on a $2 million Idaho Rebounds GRA training for child nutrition programs. Now, Idaho received this $2 million. We submitted in for it around March and received approval for that several weeks later. And so the training did go on yesterday. If you were unable to join that training, then it will be put out on YouTube, and it will take a few days because we are making it ADA, so we need to get that done before we put it out there. To be eligible for this money, your school district must meet all three of the following criteria. First of all, number one, the expenditure is necessary and was incurred during the COVID-19 pandemic. Number two, the expenditure is not accounted for in your budget that was approved as to March 27th. And that is because that this was the date that the CARES Act began. And then thirdly, the expenditure must have occurred during the period that begins April 1st and ends May 31st. The reason for that is that those are the 2 months that we had that were 100% COVID months. If you remember, when we started in March, we were running our regular operation. By the end of March, we were in COVID. So then we had April and May that were 100% COVID. And then when June started, we had some summer food. And so there was no unanticipated closure at that time because of the summertime. So that is the reason for those 2 months. Money was allocated to each eligible sponsor based on the number of reimbursable meals served during that time frame. And the funding tiers range from $118 to slightly over $195,000, again, based on the number of meals. So your school district should have gotten a letter if you're eligible for this. And if you have any questions, then you can please ask Sean Charters, Melissa Cook, or myself. If the three of us are busy, you can ask anyone on the team, and we'll make sure and get you the information that you need. And so at this point, I am going to pass over to Linda so she can give you some National School Lunch information. Thank you, everyone.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to give you some 2021 reminders. So as of August 31st, 2020, the waivers are expiring for seamless summer and summer food. That means you have to go back to regular summer food model if you're serving after that date. However, we have moved to the NSLP model for this school year, and you cannot operate the seamless summer or summer food program if you move to virtual schools. So once you open the school, you're in NSLP mode. Meals can only be served to enrolled students. And that'll bring me to meal delivery. You can serve in the classroom, cafeteria, grab and go, in a parking lot, and utilizing buses. However, if you're utilizing buses, are you having food service person distribute the meals? If not, the bus driver has to be trained in at least the full civil rights and point of service meal counting. Safe schools training does not count for our full civil rights training. So here are some considerations if you're planning on delivering to bus routes. How will you ensure only enrolled students receive a meal? How are you communicating this with your parents? What are your procedures should a non-enrolled child ask for a meal? And who's going to pay for the transportation costs? These are just some considerations that you need to think about before pursuing this model. Now I'm going to move over and let Heather talk about the meal pattern opt-in waiver, the town hall waiver or town hall webinar coming up, and virtual schools. So thank you for listening.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for those updates, Linda. So moving on to the waiver that went out, this has caused a little bit of confusion because there has been an update in the state agency process for approving meal pattern waivers. And I know many of you have completed the meal pattern, or excuse me, the waiver opt-in form for the other USDA waivers that are available more in a blanket approval process. And that did reference the meal pattern waiver. Unfortunately, USDA requires additional validation that the meal pattern waiver is targeted and justified. It's on a case-by-case approval basis. So we at the state agency realized we needed a better means of collecting information to review the request and grant approval for that. So we updated our process, put out a new form, and it's the meal pattern request form that went out as a link in email yesterday. So that would be Wednesday 19th was the release of that meal pattern request form. And that process allows you to walk through your specific scenario and give us enough detail that we can grant an approval for that request. So if you are in a situation where you feel you need certain exemptions from meal pattern requirements, then you'll want to go in your email and request the meal pattern request form and complete that. The state agency will be reviewing those as they come in, and you will be getting a notification letter of approval. So that one is a case-by-case approval. You will not be approved unless you get an approval notification letter. So be aware that does require approval, whereas the other meal pattern, or I keep saying meal pattern, excuse me, the other waiver requests were more available as an opt-in process. So the next thing I was going to talk about beyond the meal pattern opt-in is the town hall. And last week we had a town hall discussion that was tremendously helpful. Thank you all to everyone who participated in the robust conversation and coming together to really wrap our heads around what it is we're facing as school resumes this week for many of you, next week for more, and then again even into the beginning of September. So in order to continue helping each other out and having that facilitate that peer-to-peer conversation, we're going to have another town hall discussion next Wednesday, August 26th. That will start at 10 a.m. and it will go until 11:30 so that we have enough time to have the groups break down into small group discussions and do a little bit more problem solving that way. So that's the town hall. And then the last note I wanted to address on today's webinar, and it's going to be virtual schools. We did have additional clarification last week since we're getting a lot of questions food service directors are becoming aware of different educational models that the district is planning to put into place and asking, what does that mean for me in child nutrition? So we sent out notification last week, a clarification via email that would have gone to the program contact as listed in my Idaho CMP. Feel free to share that if it's something that those in your district need to see and have that documentation. But essentially, we received many questions regarding child nutrition participation for virtual schools and students enrolled therein. And in the past few days, we wanted to provide the following clarification. So virtual school eligibility per federal regulation 7 CFR 210.2, which is definitions, the USDA guidance tells us that virtual schools do not meet the definition of a school under the National School Lunch Program. Reimbursement for meals in the scenario of a virtual school are not allowed by current USDA regulation. So that is currently, to date, we do not have the authority to issue reimbursement for students of a virtual school. Students who remain enrolled in a traditional brick and mortar school that participate in the MSLP but will be learning remotely remain eligible to receive reimbursement for school meals per USDA regulation. Students enrolled full-time in virtual schools and are not enrolled in a brick and mortar site are not eligible to receive reimbursement for school meals. Students who are dual enrolled in both a virtual school and a brick and mortar site for academic purposes are eligible to participate in school meals and receive reimbursement. And if you would like to see a visual of that, there is an infographic of this that is attached to the webinar, and that was also sent out via email. So that information is current to date as of the recording of this webinar. Should additional guidance be issued, we will be sure to send that out and communicate that to those. But we wanted you to have the information that is true as of today so that you can make your plans moving forward. And so with that, that's all I have. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it all for your time.
Hello, everyone.
Like...
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to introduce you, Jan. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Colleen. Hello, everyone. I truly appreciate your patience and understanding while waiting for information about the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program. So today I am pleased to announce that Idaho has been given over $2.5 million to operate the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program this school year. We have begun to calculate the awards and will be contacting districts soon. Awarded districts will be notified of grant funds with dollar amounts for the 2 allocation periods. Please watch your email for the award notifications and agreement addendums. Those addendums will need to be signed by the superintendent and returned to the state agency for processing. USDA has extended the non-congregate and service time flexibilities that were granted under Memo SP 12/2020 that was released in April. Additionally, Idaho applied for 2 waivers that were approved, allowing for flexibility with parent-guardian pickup and alternate service locations. Any district wishing to implement these flexibilities for the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program will be required to apply for the waivers and receive approval. The school year 2021 Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Grantee Training is currently available on the CMP Digital Learning Portal. However, I will also be scheduling a virtual meeting to address program flexibilities to operate the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program during COVID. This meeting will be required for grant recipients. We will discuss how to apply for the waivers and how to ensure that the program is only available to students enrolled at the awardee school site. Details on this meeting will be included in the award notifications, but it is anticipated to occur the week of September 7th. So thank you, everyone. And I will, I think the next item on the agenda is some questions and answers. So I will pass it back to Colleen.
Okay, thank you, Jan. Thank you, team. And I just want to let everyone who is on this webinar know that the state agency, the child nutrition staff has been working very hard in your behalf. And so I just really want to do a shout out for them and the great work that they are doing and the great work that you are doing. Okay, with that said, let's start going through the questions here. First one, am I correct that we wait until we have a food shortage before filling out the meal pattern waiver survey that was emailed to us? So TJ, you want to take that one?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Unfortunately, Heather was able to kind of cover this a little bit in her presentation, but we just want everyone to understand that the meal pattern flexibilities must be requested when a need is actually existing. So, but it doesn't necessarily have to be just around food shortages. The meal pattern flexibility allows for a variety of considerations. So when going through the waiver process on that form, it will prompt questions, particularly about, are you having issues with the maybe sodium requirements, or are there staffing shortages? Do you have a vendor closure issue? There are a variety of ways that you may implement that particular waiver. So we just need to make sure that SFAs understand this has to be a targeted approach to solving an existing problem, and it cannot be in anticipation of a problem. So just make sure to review that meal pattern waiver form, and you should be able then, if you have an existing issue, describe that to us, and then the state agency will review your request.
Great, thank you,
Colleen.
TJ. Good. Yeah, good clarification. Okay, TJ, I'm going to give you this next one too. It is, do we need to send our SOP? And if so, who do we need to send this to?
Okay,
TJ,
great. And I'd be happy to. Thank you, Colleen. I assume that the asker was asking, we had previously communicated that we would like SFAs to provide their reopening plans. So when you say SOP, I'm assuming that's what you mean. It's your reopening plan. And what we've asked all SFAs to do is please upload a copy of that plan into the attachment list in My Idaho CMP with the sponsor application packet for school year 2021. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks you again, TJ. Okay, next question. Is the fuel for feeding children via bus route an allowable food service expense? So Linda, you want to take that one?
Sure, thanks, Colleen. So it is an allowable expense. However, your budget needs to be able to bear this cost without jeopardizing the quality of food that you're serving to children. So you have to keep that in mind.
Yeah, thank you, Linda. That's good clarification. And, just as a reminder, you will not get an additional pot of money to pay for the bus expenses. The reimbursement that you get, and what Linda just said, can your budget actually afford to pay for that? Because typically the Child Nutrition Fund is used for child nutrition tasks such as purchasing food, labor, large and small supplies that you need, things like that. So some budgets actually don't have that wiggle room to also pay for the bus. Okay, so the next question, I don't need the meal pattern waiver request form right now. Will it be available in download forms in My Idaho CMP if and when needed? So Linda, would you like to take that one?
Sure. We hope to have it as a button on our NSLP webpage soon so that anyone can opt in when it's needed. So just remember to go to our webpage. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Linda. Okay, next question is the fuel bus expenses eligible for the emergency funding for COVID, April and May? So if you are someone who wants to pay for the bus expenses with your allocation, you might want to give us a call because we need to make sure that that has not been reimbursed through another pot of money. The federal government has been very strict with that pot of money. State auditors are looking at as far as auditing this too. And so you want to make sure that it's not a double dipping situation. So again, if you are looking at doing that at your school district, give us a call so we can work through the specifics to make sure you're in compliance. Okay, next question. If we are serving grab and go sack meals to be ordered and delivered to each classroom by student roster. Teacher hands out to each child and checks off roster that they issued the meal to the child that ordered. Does each classroom have to have a civil rights poster? Also, how do we handle the variety of fat on meal requirement, considering the meal will be unitized and the same for all students? So, Linda, I'll give you that one.
Thanks, Colleen. No, the civil rights poster just needs to be posted in one publicly visible place, not in each classroom. And milk variety, you can apply for a waiver on that in the meal pattern waiver form. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So at this point, that is all the questions that we have. So I will toss it out to the state agency group if there's anything that they thought of that they might want to add. And okay, so with the silence I will assume means that we have covered everything at this point. I would like to remind everyone that things are changing. It just seems like almost daily. We have several meetings with USDA, the regional office, and the national office. So please continue to look at your broadcast emails. We appreciate that you get onto these webinars to get the latest information, and again, the town hall meetings. So please check all of those different resources that we're providing to make sure that you engage with the very latest. So we still don't have any additional questions. So at this time, we'll consider the webinar as closed. And again, thank you so much for all the hard work that you're doing. We appreciate. Oops, just a second, just got a question. Are we required to offer a variety of milks? We plan to serve 1% in each sack lunch. So who would like to take that one?
This is Heather. I can take that question. And to our knowledge, the milk variety requirement has not been waived by USDA, but it is one of the areas where you can request a meal pattern exemption through the meal pattern request form and indicate that you are limited by the packaging, the unitizing of the meals. So that would be an example of something to apply for using the meal pattern request form.
That's a great question, and thank you, Heather, for that information. That was great. Okay, so, and we got another question. If a teacher is handing out the sack meal to a child in the classroom that was pre-ordered, do they have to do the civil rights training? If so, long or short? So who would like to take that one?
This is TJ, and I'll go ahead and take that.
Okay.
The teachers in schools, because they have been working with students for years, we have been asking teachers to participate in the one-page civil rights training. So you can meet that requirement by making sure that the one-pager, which is available in My Idaho CMP in the download forms, is presented to the teachers, and then just have them sign off that they've read that one-pager on civil rights, and that should take care of it. So thank you, Colleen.
Yes, thank you, TJ. And these are great questions, and I appreciate the state agency team answering these. Very good. So again, we are to the end of our questions, and so if we end the webinar and you think of another question, please know that we are only a phone call or an email away. We're here for you, and again, thank you for all of your hard work. So we will hopefully see you at the next webinar and the next town hall meeting we have. Thanks again, everyone. Bye-bye.